So we've talked in the past that change isn't always a bad thing. There are people who don't like change, but that's understandable. And sometimes change, I think, can be universally viewed as good. One of the changes that I think most people are in agreement on is some of the rule changes coming to college football for the 2024 season. The 2-minute warning coming into play. I don't think that's it's nothing more than just another opportunity for TV to get a couple more commercial breaks in the game. That's all there is to it. I don't know that you can even attempt to argue that it's anything other than that. If you're going to try to call it player safety, I don't think that's anybody's going to necessarily buy that. Now, I don't think anybody necessarily bought that player safety was at hand when the changes were made to the clock rules coming into the 2023 season that, kept the clock moving and reduced the number of plays. And at the time, it was like, okay, well, it's only reducing a couple plays a game. But then over the course of, 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 games, that's the difference basically in an entire game's worth of hits that you could argue. I think they did it to shorten things up so you can get more commercials in, but that's neither here nor there. The other rule changes coming into place is the use of communication in the I don't even know you can call it technology. Communication technology between coaching staffs and players that essentially you're going to be able to have a radio in your helmet. Now, I've talked about this in the past that I'm a full-on believer that I wish college football went the entire roster coaches communication to players. Everybody had a radio in their helmet. Now, I realize that probably adds up really quickly financially, and it's not necessary if you are not mandating how many of them there can be. That turns into a recruiting advantage really quick, or especially even a competitive advantage on a Saturday that, if Ohio State's going to play Akron, Ohio State has 105 guys with radios in their helmets, and Akron has 3. There's a difference there competitively. So I understand the idea that not everybody's going to have a radio in their helmet. I think we're at a point where I wish the sport would just flat out embrace the ability to utilize that technology to its advantage. I think if you've got the technology, why not use it? It's not stupid, crazy expensive to utilize. And I think it makes the game inherently better instead of putting, holding a poster up that's a picture of the Oregon Duck, Betty White, a $5 foot long and a stop sign, and each team has to decipher what that is. I think just the offensive coordinator being able to talk into the quarterback's ear, or everybody on the field's ear, everybody that's on the sideline can know what's going on. I think that's a much better spot for the sport to be in rather than holding up a sign with the Oregon Duck, Betty White, a $5 foot long and a stop sign, and the quarterback having to figure out, all right, just what in the hell is going on right now? I just think it's a lot easier. It's a lot better for the game because college football and I think this might be just my opinion on the matter, is better when it is moving at a somewhat breakneck pace, when the offenses are more explosive, when the players are more dynamic, things move a little quicker. If you can quicken up the pace of the game just a little bit by implementing that, I think it's a good thing to do. But I like the ability, one, I think, and I very rarely think this should be a priority for college football. I think college football should be a standalone entity and not be preoccupied what the NFL does. And that might be another topic for another day. But I think having that communication, having the radio in your headset, prepares players for the NFL in a situation that, one, doesn't really alter the game of college football, doesn't alter, and it is kind of its own separate game from the NFL. There are, I think, 1,000 different rules between the NFL and college football. There are 1,000 different rules between high school football and college football. So I'm on board with college football being its own kind of sport governed by its own people without worrying about like, well, how is this going to translate to the NFL? Because I don't think that should ever really be a deciding factor in what the sport does. I don't care how it affects the NFL or how it prepares people for the NFL. So in this case, it prepares players for the NFL, but not at a detriment to college football. All it does is get them used to hearing a coach in their head saying, here's what we're going to do. And if that translates to the NFL later on down the line, it's only a net positive for college football because it's just quickening up the pace of the game and gets the ability, instead of Betty White $5 for the long stop sign, you are just getting that verbiage in your head. I think that's a net positive. I think the natural question to ask once that gets approved, kind of coinciding with the idea that there was a major kind of sign stealing scandal that some fan bases would love to tell you never happened and didn't exist, and there's not videos of coaches being told what the opposing team's running or anything like that, or people got fired and lost their jobs, or there's verifiable evidence that somebody maybe went to like a lot of opposing teams' games to steal signs over the course of the last 5 years or so. There are fan bases that will tell you that none of that happened. It didn't exist. It's all a witch hunt, poppycock, balderdash, malarkey, bullcrap. Did not happen. But we live here in the real world, and reasonable people can assure you that it did happen. People didn't lose their jobs or quit their jobs because they were bored and innocent. Anyway, I don't think those two things are connected, right? Like, I don't think that just somebody up in the Connor Stalions scandal thought, well, hell, why don't we just put radios in their helmets? Like, this isn't a new thing. And so while it would be fun, kind of conspiratorial to put those two together and be like, the reason this is happening is, it doesn't have anything to do with the Michigan sign stealing scandal, Connor Stalions, or the Easter Bunny. It has nothing to do with any of those things. This has been a long time coming, but another thing we've talked about on the podcast before is college football sort of moves kind of at the speed of smell. It not much gets like it took 145 years for the power brokers in the sport to be like, oh, you know what? Like, what would be cool and really kind of a smart way to decide a champion is if we played football. So not exactly the smartest folks running the room, not exactly the folks who are preoccupied with innovation, change. Those folks don't really have a lot of power in college football. So this has been coming for a while. And I think at the end of the day, it's a good thing. The 2-minute warning, whatever. All right. Okay. I don't feel super strongly one way or another. And I think if you do feel super strongly or one way or another, you might be like reevaluate your life choices or whatever. But on the communication headsets, being able to hear the coach in your ear, I think it's objectively a good thing. I don't know. I know there are people out there who coaches control every aspect of it. Yeah, they control every aspect of everything in every sport. Like, that's sort of kind of goes hand in hand with coaching. The idea that you're going to trot out a freshman quarterback against a Power 4 school and he's going to call every play for you or whatever just isn't realistic. And so when you figure out, okay, these people have all of the power, all of the ability in the game to control what's going on, why not just make it as easy, quick, and effective as possible? It seems like a natural to me. That's just my take on the entire thing. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing. So if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content that's pumping out here of Saturday Glory. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode here on the Daily Huddle.